What if Arya Stark had Jaqen H'ghar kill Tywin Lannister? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. 2,500 likes will get this video a part 2. Arya Stark tries to look busy as she watches soldiers spar in the training yard. Her eyes don't look to the soldiers fighting though, but instead toward one man sitting by the sides, sipping a waterskin. His hair is half white and half red, parted to show that disarming smile. But Arya knows better. She knows he is a killer underneath that smile, one who has already killed for her twice. She was about to ask for his help escaping, but then another thought crossed her mind. She could kill anyone, which meant she could end the war in a stroke with the right name. She spent hours thinking about who to name. At first, she wanted the Mountain, but he wasn't important enough to lead armies. Then she thought of Joffrey, but she recalled her time with him. Although he's a king, he is cowardly and weak. His death won't change a thing. But there is one person.
A girl is here. Does she have a name she wishes to speak?
Arya looks up to see the Lothari standing before her, that same smile on his face. She freezes and nearly bites her tongue as she regards the man. It is hard to trust him with the Lannister armor he wears, but swallows those doubts behind.
A girl, I do.
The girl has one name. Say it and they shall die.
Tywin Lannister.
The name is said, and it shall be done. The man shall die.
When?
When the time is right. Soon, perhaps. A day or a fortnight. But the man shall die.
It is an unsatisfying answer for Arya, but she doesn't have much way to protest and simply nods her head. Without another word, she turns back and returns to her duties, hoping the other guards don't see her. However, her disappointment only grows as she hears that Tywin is marching out. Despite their best efforts to make Harrenhal livable again, the Old Lion has decided not to remain there, but instead return westward. Robb's victories in Oxcross and the Whispering Woods have spooked his bannermen, and many now urge him to return home as their lands are at risk. Soon after, most of the army marches out, but a small garrison is left to watch over Harrenhal, including the brave companions. Arya is among those left behind to continue repairing the castle. The battle roars like a storm around the Red Fork, the river churning with bodies and blood as the air is filled with the clang of steel and the screams of dying men. Tywin Lannister watches from atop his destrier, yet he pays little attention to the carnage and instead focuses on the losses and potential. He's attacked several fjords, searching for any weak points, but was always met with the same stubborn resistance that sent his men scurrying back. That is except for one fjord near a stone mill where Sir Gregor managed to force a crossing and now has a tenuous foothold. Tywin raises a gauntleted hand, signaling his reserves to run at that point. If he can widen the gap, it might be enough to get his men across. His lips curl into the faintest smirk. Edmure is eager for battle, but it is clear he is not his nephew. As his banners flutter in the air, signaling his men to advance, a figure slips behind him. Jaqen H'ghar watches the guards melt away around the Old Lion, his fingers dipping the arrowhead into a small vial before knocking it to the string. The blackened tip glistens. Tywin's focus never wavers. He tracks the tide of battle and sees the shift, the moment when his men will break the enemy line. He opens his mouth to call another order. The arrow whispers through the air. A sharp sting bites his shoulder. The realization is slow, sluggish as his mind is wading mud. He tries to speak, but no sound comes. His vision wavers, dark edges creeping in. Suddenly, his armor feels very heavy, and he struggles to remain upright. A knight leaps from his saddle, rushing to his fallen lord. Tywin wants to wave him away, tell him to keep fighting, that it is nothing, but his hand does not move, and even his eyes begin to shut. Jaqen is already disappearing back into the thickets, leaving the Seven Kingdoms behind him. News reaches Arya soon after. There is only one thing that's on everyone's lips. Tywin is dead. Rumors abound as to what happened, whether it was a stray arrow, an assassin sent by Lord Edmure, or perhaps a rebellious bannerman who blames him for the destruction of his lands. What is beyond dispute is the fact that he is dead. As soon as his army got word, chaos ensued. While Sir Kevan tried to take command and largely was able to retreat in good order, the army began to fracture. Men split off, trying to return home on their own. Others surrendered to Edmure in hopes of securing free passage, and some even crossed their banners and joined the Starks or Stannis. This left the Lannisters in no position to exploit the divisions in the south. Although Tyrion presented a marriage proposal offering Joffrey to Marjorie, it is difficult for the Tyrells to trust in what the Lannisters promise, with Tywin dead and their army fracturing. Instead, they offer to treat Stannis, offering to bend the knee to him so long as their alliance with Renly is forgiven. Stannis agrees to this, and soon he lays siege to King's Landing. Though Tyrion puts up a ferocious resistance, he cannot hold back the Lord of Dragonstone for long. Although Kevan Lannister tries to stop him, Roose Bolton sees victory in the air and rushes after him, crushing the remnants of his army, forcing him to surrender and leaving Stannis in control of King's Landing. The war is now effectively over, as Robb Stark offers to bend the knee to Stannis and journey to King's Landing for Stannis' coordination. But Arya hears little of this, as she is still in Harrenhal, which is its miniature world of activity. After Tywin's defeat at the fjords, Roose Bolton wasted no time in capturing the undermanned castle. He pays the brave companions to turn on the Lannister garrison, leaving him with a bloodless victory. Roose then begins to put the captured household to the sword for serving the Lannisters. Arya nearly joins them as the Northmen mistake her for a commoner. However, she manages to save her and her friends by saying that she is Arya Stark.
I am not Amri Locke, little one. I am not so easily fooled.
Then tell me, Lord Bolton, have you visited Winterfell recently?
I have.
Then you would have met my older brother Robb.
Is that meant to prove something to me? Any girl could know that name.
Then what about the captain of the guard, Jory Castle, who was slain by Sir Jaime in King's Landing? Or what about Old Man, the oldest woman in Winterfell? Or her grandson, who can only say Hodar, but his real name is...
Walder. Impressive, little one. Even if you weren't Lady Arya, I would have gladly taken you under my service. You are too quick-witted for this sort of work. Very well. I'm convinced. You shall accompany me to King's Landing, where I will present you to Lord Robb.
True to his word, when Roose departs, Arya is in tow. The Lord of the Dreadfort keeps a close eye on her. From being a simple servant, she is now a guest of honor. He invites her to dine with him, and his servants tending to her. Even her friends are treated well, receiving baths and fresh clothes, as well as being exempt from work. However, Roose takes a keen interest in her, more than just because she is his liege lord's sister. He questions her on how she managed to escape, learning how she snuck out of King's Landing and managed to survive so long without allies or on her own. In the end, he asks if she wishes to continue learning to fight after everything she saw. Arya says she does, becoming more determined than ever after seeing all the destruction the Lannisters wrought. Roose Bolton is impressed, and by the time they arrive at King's Landing, a plan forms in his head. He simply promises Arya that she may get her chance to hone her blade under his service. Amid the grandeur of King's Landing, banners of orange and black drape the streets, along with the fiery heart of Stannis, as the city prepares for the coronation. The damage is being repaired, and it hardly seems as though there was a siege a few weeks back. Within the Red Keep, Arya stands among familiar yet distant faces, her family. The reunion is warm, their embraces tight, but sadness lingers beneath their joy. The sack of Winterfell has left its mark on all of them, a wound that time may never fully heal. To make matters worse, Sansa is nowhere to be seen. Despite Stannis' capturing the city, he did not find a trace of her, even as he sent his men searching for her all across the surrounding countryside. Little does anyone know that Littlefinger had secretly smuggled Sansa out of the city, speeding up his plan once he saw the city was lost.
Arya, I never thought I'd see you again.
I had no idea what happened to you.
Mother, Robb, I'm so glad to see you. You wouldn't believe what happened to me while I was gone. Father, he's...
We know. Hush now, child. Today is a happy day. You and your sister are alive, and that is all that matters to me right now.
Arya can only nod, overwhelmed by the emotions and looking at them. Tears sting her eyes, but she manages to smile and looks over at her family. They are much fewer than before, but she is still so happy to see them and embraces them.
Lord Bolton, House Stark is forever in debt for this service.
You are most kind, my lord.
But if I may suggest, though the Ironborn have been driven from Winterfell, it might be best if Arya is made to ward in my lands until it is safe. And to tell the truth, I have grown quite fond of her on the journey here. You have been nothing but loyal since the start of this war. I will grant you this boon as long as Arya agrees.
Arya hesitates, but ultimately agrees. The war has changed her, and she knows she must grow stronger. She glances at Robb, at her mother, and though they are reluctant to part with her, they do not protest. She is not the girl she once was, and they understand. Meanwhile, negotiations with Stannis Baratheon move forward. Thankfully, peace talks seem to be going well, as once they bend the knee, the new king is willing to accept their fealty and even offers some aid in driving back the Ironborn as the realm is united once more. One lord who stands a bit higher than most is Roose Bolton. His victory in capturing Harrenhal and defeating Sir Kevan has made him a hero in the Seven Kingdoms. As the Northmen return home, Robb breaks off with the main army, intent on driving back the remaining Ironborn from their coastal strongholds like Deepwood Motte and Torrens Square. In the meantime, Catelyn begins rebuilding Winterfell. Arya, though, is bound for the Dreadfort, where the Leech Lord coaxes the rest of her story. Although she tries to keep some of it secret, those pale eyes unsettle her, and seem to force the truth out by force of will. By the time they reach the fortress, Roose has learned about Arya's list of names, Jaqen H'ghar, and the training with Syrio Forel. Oddly enough, the pale-eyed lord doesn't seem skeptical about this. He seems intrigued, and says that what she is describing is a faceless man. At the Dreadfort, Arya's training begins. Roose does not teach her how to swing a sword like a knight, or how to fight in the open field. Instead, he teaches her patience, the art of silence, and how to observe everything without being noticed. It is something just as important, but perhaps more tricky: how to become an assassin. She learns how to move unseen, how to read the smallest gestures in others, and how to listen for the truth hidden in lies. He places a knife in her hand, instructing her on the best places to strike for a quick, quiet kill. He teaches her how to extract information, sometimes with words, sometimes with steel. Arya does not flinch from what she sees. The horrors of Harrenhal have hardened her, yet when she asks to do it herself, hesitation creeps in. Roose makes her stare at the flayed man on his banners for hours, getting her used to the sight. He reminds her that the flayed man is more than just a symbol, it's a way of ruling, one that has served House Bolton well for many years. A peaceful land, a quiet people, and sometimes the only way to do that is through swift justice. Not with knights in a trial by combat, but by a blade in the back. It is why even the Crown employs the Master of Whispers to ensure that no secrets are truly kept hidden. Arya hesitates in some ways. Roose reminds her of Tywin, but also of Jaqen. Soon enough, he puts these words to the test by presenting Arya with a captive, a thief arrested within the Dreadfort's lands. Arya is not instructed to torture him for information, but simply to provide him with the required punishment. Her hand wavers and her stomach churns. Roose watches her carefully, his dead eyes staring until she manages to slash her knife down and take his hand off, letting the limb flop to the ground. Once the deed is done and the man led away, Roose places a hand on her shoulder, neither pleased nor disappointed.
A lesson learned too late is death.
But whatever these lessons teach her do not leave her prepared for Ramsay Bolton. He watches her, always, his sharp eyes full of something dark and eager. He grins when she refuses to meet his gaze, taking her defiance as a game. He speaks to her in mocking tones, slithering closer each time they are alone until they are mere inches from each other. He cannot tell whether he despises her or is infatuated, or which is worse. Unfortunately, it seems like Ramsay won't leave her alone. Perhaps it is her willingness to inflict pain on others, or her ability to handle a knife and sword, or simply her family name. But he follows her around, keeping a close eye on her. She loathes him, but thankfully does not have to deal with him for long, as Roose continues training her. Perhaps his most important lesson is to teach her how to use her weaknesses as an advantage. As a child, she cannot face grown men in head-to-head fights, but she can use it to defeat them.
Few men will kill a child on a whim. They will yell at you, frighten you, or threaten you, but there is always hesitation. Use it. Take that moment to drive your knife into them. Turn it into your greatest advantage. In many people's eyes, you are beyond question. Remember, anyone can defeat a water dancer, so long as they do it in the first strike.
Arya takes these lessons to heart and begins sending her out on missions. These start as areas around his land, hunting down people who threaten the peace, criminals, thieves, drunkards, rapers, and disobedient men-at-arms. Arya is sent to deal with them quietly, quickly, without being noticed. Rather than rush into these fights, she lies and waits for the perfect time to strike. Whether it's when an unruly soldier has drunk himself into a stupor, a thief flush with victory, or a criminal as he sleeps. She moves in the shadows, knife in hand, fulfilling her lord's orders with growing skill. Each time she returns, though, after a fresh kill, Ramsay is waiting for her, a wicked smile and a crude jape on his lips. Yet Roose is less responsive, offering only a cold nod. As this training goes on for months and the lands grow quiet, Roose decides that the time has come to begin putting Arya's skills to the test with one final challenge. She expects to be sent out to kill a rebellious vassal or a vile criminal, but instead, Lord Bolton simply takes her by the shoulder and guides her to the dungeon. A shudder runs across her body as she realizes this is Ramsay's torture chamber. Although the Leech Lord assures her that he is out on an errand, it still does not put her at ease. Inside, there is a single figure tied to a set of wood, spread eagle. His hair has turned white and stringy, while several of his teeth and fingers have been removed. Arya's stomach churned as she stared at him. She has seen torture, but even this is too much for her, and she can barely look. She shivers at the sight of them and looks away. He seems especially horrified when he lays eyes on Arya. It takes a moment to realize who this figure is. Theon Greyjoy. However, Lord Bolton's commanding glare is enough to force her to look once again. But the more she looks at him, the more her anger boils over. She remembers what Robb said about Winterfell, how it was the Ironborn led by Theon who captured and sacked it, and how it was Roose Bolton's men who freed it.
This is your final challenge. Learn the truth from him. You may do whatever it takes.
Theon.
No. My name is Reek.
Your name is Theon Greyjoy. Don't lie to me.
I'm not lying. I swear my name is Reek. It rhymes with leak.
She stares into his eyes, her fingers twitching around her knife. His eyes are wide with fear, manic and uncertain. She remembers what Lord Bolton tells her, that there is a difference between the truth and what people believe is the truth.
Then how did you end up here?
Lord Ramsay Bolton captured me after he won the Battle of Winterfell.
What happened in the Battle of Winterfell?
She looks deep into his eyes and sees the truth, but she watches him carefully as he recounts the rest of the story. He says that he cut down Sir Roderick during the parley, how he had his men ambush and kill the Northmen, and it was Ramsay who arrived and rallied the Northmen during the battle. As he speaks, his eyes become manic and his voice hoarse. Arya can tell he's lying and then slaps him.
Liar! What did Ramsay do?
It's the truth. I swear, it's the truth. I know.
Her fingers clench up, and she's tempted to drive her knife into his shoulder, to strike him and force him to talk. It would feel so good, she tells herself, as she can feel her blood boiling. The room seems to spin and turn red. She clutches her temples as she can almost hear Ramsay's voice egging her on, telling her to do it. Theon trembles and tries to back away, squirming. She thinks back to the Tickler and Sir Gregor, reminding herself how they got people to talk and confess. She thinks of all the ways they broke people. But as she sees Theon sobbing, she realizes he's already broken, and those mocking words fall away. She drops her knife and levels a hard, contemptuous gaze on him.
The truth you know, but not the truth. Very well. If you won't tell me, then I'll tell Lord Bolton that you've misbehaved.
No. If Lord Ramsay hears this, he will be very displeased.
If you fear Lord Ramsay more than Roose Bolton, then you deserve to be up there.
Soon enough, his sobs fill the room as Theon pleads and begs. But as Arya turns around and prepares to leave, the truth comes out. He says how Theon had sent Ramsay out to gather reinforcements, and how he betrayed the Northmen and then the Ironborn. By the time he's finished, Arya nods and offers him a drink of water, thanking him for telling her. Theon begs for her not to tell Ramsay, but then she leans in close and promises that she will not let him hurt him. The halls of the Dread Fort are eerily quiet. Arya moves like a shadow, her steps soft on the cold stone floors. Roose Bolton is gone, off on an errand, leaving Arya alone. She drags a finger across her dagger and steels herself. She has killed before, quick, clean, without hesitation. But Ramsay is different. He is a monster, one who needs to be put down. Suddenly, the door opens and Ramsay makes his way inside, chuckling to himself. Arya doesn't trust herself to breathe, as if afraid he would hear it. Instead, she moves closer and raises her knife. Ramsay suddenly turns to her and smiles when she is a foot away.
I've listened to these halls for years. I recognize every shadow. You do take after me, you know. My little shadow. You should have let me teach you properly.
Arya freezes, her heart hammering in her chest. He knew. Her blade flashes toward his throat, but Ramsay is just as quick. He twists away, grabbing her wrist and wrenching her forward. She grunts as he slams her against the wooden table, her dagger clattering to the floor.
Too predictable. You should have slit my throat while I was sleeping. A shame. You would have made a fine wife.
Rage ignites in Arya's chest. She thinks of Sir Roderick and her brothers, but then she finds herself thinking of Theon. She drives her knee up, slamming it into his gut. Ramsay stumbles back, laughing, but Arya is already reaching for another knife tucked in her belt. She lunges, the blade sinking into his side.
That was a good one, but not good enough.
He reaches for his sword, but Arya pushes him down with all her might. Though he does topple, the tip of his blade grazes her arm and leaves her wincing. He tries to get up, slashing at her, but Arya barely ducks underneath it, clutching her wounded arm. She kicks him back and straddles his chest, ripping the dagger from her side, and instead puts it where it belongs, in his throat. Ramsay gurgles. He lunges forward, his body jerking around as he tries to staunch the bleeding in his arms. Arya watches as the light fades from his eyes. Just then, the doors open once again, and Steelshank's Walton appears, telling her the Lord of the Dreadfort will see her. Roose Bolton is sitting in his solar, looking more prepared to sleep than having just traveled. Arya realizes he never left.
Why?
You've met my boy. After a day with him, I'm sure you can find a dozen reasons as to why he deserves his fate.
He was your son.
Indeed. That's the issue, isn't it? No man is as cursed as a kinslayer, even to kill one as monstrous as Ramsay. To tell you the truth, I've had little fondness for the boy, and I had hoped that the Ironborn would have taken care of him. But I suppose my thanks are yours.
I don't want your thanks. I want answers. Why did you train me? Why are you making me do this?
Isn't it obvious? Insurance.
Insurance?
You are your brother's heir until such a time he can father a son. If the North is to survive, it will require someone who can avoid your brother's mistakes.
My brother won the war. What mistakes did he make?
No. Your brother won the battles, not the war. And to be sure, he is a gifted commander, brave, charismatic, and intelligent. But ruling and fighting are two different things, as our late King Robert must have figured out. I've seen what others couldn't or refused to see. He was blinded by honor and placed too much value on oaths. If Lord Tywin had not died at the Red Fort, this war may have gone quite differently. Make no mistake, girl. It was you who ended this war with your faceless man, not your brother.
He leans closer to her until his eyes meet hers.
My lands may be quiet, but the realm is far from peaceful. Even now, the Ironborn remains. Wildlings are massing at the wall, and I sense great trouble beyond our borders. If the North, not the realm, is to survive, it will require those who understand the value of a knife in the dark, as King Stannis does.
King Stannis?
Aye. Did I not tell you? King Stannis has sought fit to name me part of his small council. I am to serve as his master of whispers, but I require help. Will you help me, Arya of Winterfell?
He suddenly holds up a knife she did not know he had, and offers it, hilt first. 2,000 likes gets a part 2. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the 7 kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.